Luck plays a big part in winning, and where you get drafted can make or break a player's NBA career. In this video, we'll talk about 10 players who got stuck with incompetent franchises and whose talent far exceeded their team's success. Oscar Robertson. After he led the NCAA in scoring in all 3 years of his playing tenure, Cincinnati Royals, who are now the Sacramento Kings, have selected Oscar Robertson with the territorial pick or the first overall pick in the 1960 NBA draft. Big O was dominant from the start, immediately proving that he was among the world's 4 or 5 best basketball players. Oscar averaged a near triple-double with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and a league-leading 9.7 assists, but his team still missed the playoffs. Bear in mind, there were only 8 teams in the NBA back then. 6 of them made the playoffs, while only the last team in each conference was eliminated. Next year, Oscar had a season for the ages, averaging a triple-double of 31 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists, but the Royals still lost in the first round of the postseason. In 1964, the Royals had a 55-25 record, the best ever for Oscar in Cincinnati, and Big O won his only MVP award, but they lost to the Celtics in the playoffs again. After that playoff run in 1964, the Royals and Robertson never went through the first round of the playoffs again, and in 1968, 69, and 70, they didn't even make the postseason. During the 60s, Big O made first-team All-NBA every year. He led the league in assists 7 times and was a scoring champ once, with high efficiency every year. But the lack of quality support, especially at the center position, constant coaching changes, and racial abuse, made his life in Cincinnati miserable, and he was finally traded to Milwaukee in 1970. In his first season as a Buck, Big O won a championship next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then known as Lou Alcindor. Oscar was, without a doubt, the best guard of the 60s, with only 2 playoff series victories to show for it, and only 6 playoff appearances when only a handful of teams didn't make the postseason. So, it's safe to say that the Royals have royally screwed up during the Big O era, who was easily the best player in franchise history. Pete Maravich. Pete Maravich joined the NBA in 1970 after a spectacular college career at LSU. And even though he set some scoring records that still stand today, including a 44-point season average, his LSU Tigers were never good enough to reach the NCAA tournament. A similar trend happened in the NBA after he was selected with the 3rd pick by the Atlanta Hawks. A phenomenal ball handler and a killer scorer, Pistol Pete averaged 25 points per game in 4 seasons as a Hawk, with 2 All-Star selections. However, the team was just good enough to sneak into the playoffs, where they would regularly lose in the first round. After year 4, where they didn't even make the playoffs, Maravich was traded to the New Orleans Jazz, an expansion team that just started its journey as an NBA franchise. During his 5 years in New Orleans and half a season in Utah, the Jazz never once had a positive record, and Pistol Pete didn't even get a taste of the postseason, despite 3 All-Star nods, 25 points per game, and 1 scoring title. He got traded to Boston in 1980, a team that would win 3 titles with Larry Bird in the 80s. But Pistol's knees gave out, and he retired after just half a season as a Celtic, forever robbed of championship glory. Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett is loyal to a fault, and his warrior never-give-up mentality is a big reason for his success, but also why he didn't win more NBA championships. The big ticket came to the NBA straight from high school in 1995, and he quickly started dominating on both ends of the floor. KG was a complete package. He was athletic, long, and quick, and could guard all 5 positions on defense, plus score in the post and from the mid-range on offense. In his prime, he was the most versatile and arguably the best player in the NBA, which was recognized in 2004 when he got the MVP award. However, the thing that was lacking was team success. His Minnesota Timberwolves made a series of bad decisions in free agency, and other than the conference finals in 2004, they never won a playoff series during Garnett's era, including 7 consecutive first-round playoff exits. Finally, in 2007, after 13 years of loyalty, KG had enough and asked for a trade. He joined Ray Allen and Paul Pierce in Boston and immediately won a title, plus 1 more appearance in the finals. "I should have come to the Celtics a little sooner. Boston gave me light and a purpose," Garnett admitted. He was 31 years old when he came to Boston, and even though he was still in his prime, it's undeniable that his best years were left frozen in the cold Minneapolis. If KG played for the Spurs and Tim Duncan played for the Timberwolves, we would have probably been talking about Garnett as the best power forward ever, and not the other way around. LeBron James. LeBron James will be remembered for forming super teams and shifting the free agency power into players' hands. He managed to win 4 NBA championships with 3 different teams, and his legacy as a winner is finally undeniable. However, it also has to be noted that LeBron played half his career on bad teams, which is what made him form a super team in the first place. His first 7-year stint with the Cavs was just LeBron and not much else. In 2007, James put the Cavs on his shoulders and dragged them to the finals, making them arguably the worst team ever to reach the finals. That was most evident in the conference finals against Detroit, when LeBron scored the final 29 out of Cleveland's 30 points to win Game 5. In 2015, he dragged the Cavs to the finals basically by himself again, after Kyrie and Kevin Love got injured in the playoffs. The same story was in 2018, when LeBron had one of the best playoff runs in NBA history, averaging 34-9-9 on 54% shooting, while some of his teammates didn't even know the score in the deciding moments of a finals game. In 2019, he missed the playoffs with the Lakers just because they couldn't win enough games when he was injured. All in all, that's 9 or 10 years of mediocre teams who would probably be at the bottom of the standings without James, and that's why LeBron deserves to be on this list. Tracy McGrady. Tracy McGrady's career can be summed up with a few different phrases, but it mostly comes down to injuries and being at the wrong place at the wrong time. McGrady came to the NBA directly from high school, and just when he started to dominate together with his cousin Vince Carter in Toronto, he opted for a change of scenery. Tracy came to Orlando, where he was supposed to team up with Grant Hill, the best small forward in the league at the time and a perennial all-star. However, Hill's ankle injury went from bad to worse, to the point where his foot almost got amputated. Grant played only 47 games in 4 years with McGrady, who carried the poor Magic team to the playoffs by himself a few times, but couldn't do much more. In 2004, when Tracy was a scoring champion for the second time, Orlando had the worst record in the NBA. Then, he got to Houston, where he did have a good team around him, but injuries to both Tracy and Yao Ming stopped them from any serious success. McGrady never won a playoff series in his life until 2013, when he was warming the bench for the Spurs. Mitch Richmond. Mitch Richmond was 1/3 of the super popular Run TMC Warriors, which got named after Tim Hardaway, Mitch, and Chris Mullin. But after only 2 seasons together and 1 conference semifinals in 1991, the Warriors made a big mistake by trading Richmond to Sacramento. Mitch would stay with the Kings for 7 years, during which he made 6 All-Star teams and averaged 23 points per game. But it was all in vain, as the Kings reached the playoffs only once during his time there, and immediately lost in the first round. After Sacramento, Richmond got traded to Washington, where he was still productive for 3 years, but he didn't see the playoffs there either. At that point, he was averaging 21 points for his 13-year career, but only played in the playoffs 3 times, with 2 second-round exits as a highlight. Finally, at the age of 35, he got on the Lakers bandwagon and won a ring with Kobe and Shaq in 2002, despite playing only 4 minutes in the playoffs. Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins played in the 80s and early 90s, where it was unusual for stars to ask for trades, meaning they would stay with the same team for the majority of their career. Wilkins is synonymous with the Atlanta Hawks, where he played for 12 seasons, during which he was an All-Star 9 times, a scoring champion, and a 7-time All-NBA member. Wilkins was one of the best scorers and most attractive players in the NBA for years, but when it came to playoff time, Nick's accomplishments started to dwindle, and not because of him. The Hawks were stopped in the second round 3 times, in the first round 6 times, and 3 times they didn't even make the playoffs during Nick's 12 years there. They were decent, but not good enough, which was a waste of Dominique's talent, who averaged 26.4 points in Atlanta. Sharif Abdur-Rahim. Sharif Abdur-Rahim was the 3rd overall pick by the Vancouver Grizzlies in the famous 1996 NBA draft. Even though there were better players than him selected later, namely Kobe, Nash, and Ray Allen, Reef did not disappoint. He was a 6'9" power forward who averaged 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in his first 8 seasons in the league. But he played for some of the worst teams in NBA history. The Grizzlies never won more than 23 games in Sharif's 5 seasons, after which he was traded to Atlanta. With the Hawks, he was selected to 1 All-Star game, but the Hawks were also a sub-500 team, and so was Portland, Sharif's next destination. After that, injuries took their toll, and he was not as productive, despite finally making the playoffs with the Kings in 2006. Ray Allen. Ray Allen quickly established himself as one of the best shooters in the NBA, but other than the 2001 trip to the conference finals with the Bucks, his prime was spent on mediocre teams. During his 6 seasons in Milwaukee, he missed the playoffs 3 times, with 2 first-round exits, despite Allen averaging 20 points per game. Then he got traded to Seattle in the middle of the 2003 season, while the Sonics were in a transition period after the Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp era was finally over. It was painful watching Ray fill up buckets that didn't mean anything, with only 1 winning season and 4 missed playoff berths. In his first 11 seasons in the NBA, Ray averaged 22 points per game, with only 4 playoff appearances, which was unworthy of his talent. Zach Randolph. Zach Randolph got drafted by the Blazers in 2001, who had a veteran team, leaving very few minutes for Z-Bo in his first 2 seasons. But at least they made it to the playoffs in those 2 years, something Randolph would not taste again until 2011. Z-Bo became a starter at the beginning of the 03-04 season, and he averaged 20 points and 10.5 rebounds for the next 8 years for Portland, the Knicks, the Clippers, and Memphis. But wherever he was traded, the team sucked. Randolph never played for a team with a positive record and missed the playoffs year after year during his prime. It was only during the grit and grind era of the Grizzlies when Z-Bo finally got his shine, even though he was already in his 30s when he won his first playoff series.